Madam Speaker. And I rise to speak on the Crimes Amendment Breaking and Entering Offences Bill 2026. Just stating at the outset, it's really important that if we find a legal loophole, we are sitting here as legislators and we must fix it. Because a legal right is not a moral right, and it is not protecting the victims in our society. Because domestic violence is a daily reality that too many families face in our community. In places like Oxley, where police and frontline services are dealing with these matters every day, it's one of the most serious issues. We see a lot of expenditure of time and effort and administration in these processes. We know from BOSCAR data that domestic violence remains at concerning levels right across the mid-north coast. And sometimes, in the case of a police administration, it can take officers up to or above 4 hours to deal with each case. It's so convoluted at the moment, and we need to address it so that we're not adding to those numbers. It's not really an easy statistic to hear that we have LGAs ranked amongst the higher levels right across New South Wales for domestic and family violence incidents. It reflects real people being affected. It reflects real families and real harm that is occurring, and unfortunately, it is on a daily basis in our community. And only this week, we had a briefing from the local police and in Kempsey, and they advised that in around 80% of domestic violence call-outs, at least one person is arrested. And that tells us a few things really clearly, that the scale of the problem is large, and it's due to the prevalence of domestic violence and our population numbers across the Mid-North Coast, that the severity of the situations police are walking into on the ground is escalated. And the length of time police are tied up doing their paperwork, as well as the risk to our community. The victims, they are unfortunately predominantly women, and we need to make sure that we're noting that these are serious, somewhat volatile incidents, often occurring behind closed doors in homes where people should feel at their safest. That is our safe area. Too often it's women who carry the burden of fear, living with former partners who refuse to accept that the relationship has ended, trying to continue to exert extreme levels of control. And in some cases, it can escalate to significant aggression and violence. And it's simply unacceptable that our criminal law contains uncertainty around whether a former partner, who might still have some tenuous legal connection to a property, that they can force entry into a home and avoid being charged with break and enter, as previously identified by the courts. I support the adjustment to the law by the Attorney General, and as I said before, a legal right does not equate to a moral right, and we need to make sure that we align that distinction. We fix the law, because imagine someone trying to rebuild their life in a small town, living in fear that a person from their past could walk back into their home on a tenuous link and maybe smash into that home, and that trauma, that scared nature, the fear that you're putting that person through, and maybe those kids that are in the family, and the fact that the law might not treat that as a serious offence, I think is not quite good enough. And our homes are our castles. They're our last bastion of feeling safe. And I want to really acknowledge that this issue was previously identified by the former coalition government. In 2023, the Liberal and National parties introduced the Crimes Amendment Breaking and Entering Bill in 2023 to address this exact loophole, and unfortunately it wasn't supported by the Labor government then and ultimately lapsed. Now, almost 3 years later, we are finally seeing movement. And we have sat on this side and listened to Labor trying to show us up that we're playing games in opposition. It's clearly happening on the other way as well. And whilst it is disappointing that it's taken this long to get there, to protect our women, any step that provides protections for victims of domestic violence must be acknowledged and must be congratulated. And I really do support the recommendations from our side on amending this bill. Noting that we're suggesting that it should commence on assent. There is no real justification for any further delay. It puts community members right across the Mid-North Coast at risk. And those community members are the ones that can least defend themselves. We need to be the ones that stand up and say, we are going to protect you through the law. It is a good start, but as a representative from a community that has a high level of domestic violence, I'm asking the government to continue to work towards stronger servicing of protection of these victims. Stronger support services as well for women and families escaping violent relationships. Stronger coordination between police, health and community services right across regional New South Wales. We also need early intervention education, so identification of personnel likely to cause these crimes or likely to be the victims of these episodes of violence. Because if we can stop the behaviour that leads to this type of violence before it escalates, then that can only benefit all involved, including the perpetrator. So I support this bill, I support the amendments proposed by the Liberals and Nationals, and I thank the Attorney General for bringing it to the House.
Madam Speaker.